Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nimiq podcast. This is your host, Richie, and this time I'm here with Mauricio Lara, who is a legal advisor of the team, and also with Adrian Garcia, a business developer advisor of the team. Thank you for joining me, guys. We are going to talk a bit about emerging markets, different regulations around the world, and how this helps or prevents the creation of new ideas, startups, and such. So let's start with something very high level, like how do you feel individuals are interacting with the blockchain world right now, in like maybe a comparison between here in Latin America and other places of the world. Adrian, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, of course, there's different sorts of individuals and different sorts of companies and different sorts of governments. I think we're going to talk about it in a while, but coming from a very personal experience, being here today in Santa Teresa, I personally am looking forward to go to a very good sushi restaurant this evening and pay with crypto and experience that whole excitement about using something for the first time, or using something as a pioneer or as a newcomer to a field, that because I'm a nerd or a geek and I like technology, and that's one type of individual, right? The enthusiast, the crypto fan, or likes technology, that's one type. And so for that type of individual, and there's subtypes even for that one, we are looking for opportunities to test, utilize, learn about crypto in almost every space that we can. That's one side of the spectrum maybe. And then there's others where they read stuff on the news, or they do not use or interact with technology directly that often in their lives. So crypto is this sort of unknown space. So they lack currently the tools or even their personal curiosity to interact with that. And then in the middle, I think there's other scenarios that we can name. And I think the next couple of years are going to be key to develop that connection in all the different types of individuals, businesses, and governments, so that everyone can have an opportunity to experience it, to test it, to use it, to make money out of it, to learn. And this is, I think, the challenge for the next couple of years. What do you think, Mau?
Yeah, very interesting. I actually like what you mentioned regarding like the use by different individuals and for different purposes. And I strongly believe that the use of cryptocurrencies and the different uses have been evolving with the market as well. I mean, initially when the Bitcoin white paper was issued, I mean, it was all about payments. And I believe that a lot of the projects that were created in 2017 were focusing on payments. And I still believe that there's a strong case for remittances and for different payments that can be done with cryptocurrencies. But in reality, I mean, we have evolved so far beyond payments that now you see, for example, decentralized finance or DeFi protocols allowing people to invest or deposit their cryptos. I mean, we saw JPEG monkeys. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of use cases that have been popping up and evolving that in reality, I mean, gives us like a very broad sense of who the end user of cryptocurrencies can be and is. So I mean, I like that evolution, obviously, because it just it means that the space is growing and there's ever more interest in developing new use cases. So I mean, I'm actually very excited about what the next wave of hype will be.
Yeah, certainly. And I remember that I was in high school when the internet started. So that was 1996, 7, I remember. And so it was really the early adopters, the curious ones, or the teenagers, or, you know, the technologists that started to play around with that new world of the internet. So today, I think it resembles a little bit of that, where the techies, the curious folks, the explorers are the ones creating all these uses, right? For example, I'm getting married at some point next year, and so I was thinking about yeah. So I was thinking, okay, how about if in parallel to the traditional things that one needs to do, how about signing the marriage, putting it on the signature of a block, right? So it's there.
You really want a permanent record?
That's an example. But it's like curious folks that start to ask these questions, and it really will not have any economic benefit or anything more than feeling excited about testing something new in a very ordinary use case, like marrying. The other day, you're a lawyer. I was thinking, imagine if we can have, instead of in the typical emerging world where one has to bring a photocopy of your ID for whatever purpose, opening a bank account or interacting with the government, imagine that you would be able to connect via an API to whatever blockchain where that information, immutable information about you, is stored there. So you don't have to bring the photocopy, which is a horrendous example. And that extended to every interaction or a lot of interactions between individuals, between an individual and the government, a transaction of a business with an individual, a transaction between two businesses, right? So this is the world that we're going to see, I hope, in the next couple of years, where the technology becomes more than the monkey JPEG and more than the crypto, I want to earn fast money now, and really becomes a profound part of people's lives or companies or governments. And this is where we're really going to see the tide change, as we saw with the internet. You at the end of that decade, 99, 2000, and all the internet companies started to use that main new tool to then put it on the hands of folks to live their lives, to do business, and so on. And I hope that's what's going to happen in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, digital identity and like Web3 based applications, I mean, there's certainly a lot of opportunity there, and a lot of growth that can develop from those applications.
I like this, what you mentioned, Adrian, basically that it speaks to a lot of people here in Costa Rica and Latin America, the fact of having to bring you a photocopy of your ID to do some procedure, right? But maybe it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't sound familiar for somebody in Europe, because things work differently there. So when we talk about crypto and regulations, and maybe not even just crypto, also financials in general and fintech, how would you compare the regulations in Europe, maybe in the American zone, Latin America, and North America? Maybe Mauricio, what do you think about that, since you have quite some experience in that background, in that domain?
Yeah, I mean, talking specifically about documentation that needs to be submitted to a bank, I mean, it was actually incredibly surprising to me, the difference in opening a bank account in the US versus in Costa Rica. I mean, in Costa Rica, there's literally like a laundry list of documents that you need to submit, and you need to provide evidence of this and that. I mean, in the US, it was super easy. I mean, I just went there as an expat, as a non-resident with my Costa Rican passport, and that's all I needed, and I had a bank account. Here in Costa Rica, I mean, I had this example last week. It was the girlfriend of a client of ours that was moving to Malpais, actually, to live here. I mean, she's gonna be like a masseuse or something here. I mean,
She needs to have a bank account, yes.
Yeah, she needs to have a bank account to pay her bills and deposit things. And I mean, the amount of documentation that was requested from her for an account that's probably gonna move like $2,000 a month. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, they wanted like proof of income, like contracts, like I mean, why?
I think it's so frustrating because it's almost exactly the same, most probably, as opening a bank account 50 years ago, 50, with the exception or worse. And now people think, we have technology now, so we have bots and chats and bunch of these cool things, but they actually don't make it easier.
Except I think Banco Nacional does not have technology. Everything was paper.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, people get the point that I think we are all trying to make our lives easier. I don't want to go to a physical bank and make a line and submit documents. I just want to, like this person you mentioned, she wants to come here, she wants to make a living, maybe go to the ATM to get some cash because cash is needed occasionally to do whatever stuff, and it's really mind-boggling how this is difficult.
I mean, what strikes me the most is, I mean, all of this compliance framework has a purpose. to basically identify people or companies that are engaging in illegal activities and that they're using the financial system to basically, call it launder or deceive with regards to what the origin of those funds are. I mean, the framework or the idea of the due diligence that needs to be done on these people is called know your customer. I mean, why don't you just focus on knowing your customer? I mean, literally, what compliance risk or money laundering risk could a masseuse provide to the bank that's going to move $2,000 a month? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, that there needs to be an alternative or some sort of framework that can enable these people to just have a bank account, be part of the financial system without having to undergo the same process that you would do for, I don't know, a traditional company or I don't know, a person from a different jurisdiction or something. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I imagine a future where the blockchain is really part of all this you're mentioning. Imagine this is a person with, I don't know, just to name a Swiss national, that person is connected via the blockchain to the federal system of identification, of identity, and then that is connected through some systems, through some other maybe company or non-profit that then verifies that person exists in real life, that has friends, that has bank accounts opened in other places, that has purchased, that has a e-commerce account in this location. So it adds a lot of layers of credibility and trust that individual exists as a regular, normal individual, to not being afraid of opening a bank account in Costa Rica. But the problem is still a very human problem, which is trust. And I think as long as the world does not move to the blockchain, we're going to still be relying on trust via individuals, via organizations, via governments, and not any of those three are 100% reliable, right? So I think the blockchain in thinking about the future allows for individuals, companies, and governments to be to provide and gain trust from a third party that is decentralized. So that's sort of the in my own words, what I think the future will become, I hope, with the technology such as the blockchain, or however it evolves in a couple of decades from now. But it's really about, I think, building trust and asking for a photocopy when you do whatever thing you need to do with the government or with a private company, like opening a bank account, is an awful idea. I think we are much more evolved than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting the example that you mentioned about gathering these different points of information and coming to a conclusion. This is an example that I've encountered with several fintech companies that are doing lending. So, I mean, a traditional bank or a bank in Costa Rica, as I said, they're very much behind on technology that is currently available to analyze potential subjects for a loan and the different data points that are analyzed for that purpose. So, for example, I mean, a bank here in Costa Rica will basically consider your income or your source of income, the debts that you have, and basically you based on those 2 points, they would analyze the capabilities that you would have to basically pay back that loan that you're getting. There are companies in the US that are working with AI technology that analyze more than 200 different data points that include social media presence. They include like the footprint that the person has on their digital image, like LinkedIn profiles and things like that. They verify obviously the behavior of the person's bank account and how they use their funds. So they use hundreds of different data points to reach a conclusion. What they have found is that by using those systems, they're actually able to issue more credit, and good credit that it actually pertains to a person that is more willing to pay that debt than just basically analyzing those 3 data points. So I think in terms of compliance and KYC, I also think that there should be more development towards basically considering what kind of individual or activities could be more prone to providing a risk for compliance purposes, as opposed to just analyzing everyone under the same scope, and then just having to have everyone go through the same process and the same due diligence that will basically yield less people opening bank accounts, and I mean, at the end, just having the same risk with everyone.
Yeah, I think a good analogy today is like the Face ID that we all, or some of us, use with an Apple device or similar devices. This basically, I mean, a biometric footprint of your face is something that, I mean, this technology basically, of course, checks a bunch of points in front of the camera and is really certain that it's you. It's kind of the similar thing where you are checking different data points from different sources, but I think that's where the trust again comes into play, where the Apple camera is checking your face because it's in front of the camera, right? But imagine that if there's 200 data points that are being reviewed for providing a loan potentially, how do I trust that data point number 197 that is supposed to be a financial statement from XYZ company is valid? How do I trust that the ID or passport that this person provided me is the right one? Right, so that's where if all those data points were built on the blockchain that has the characteristics we all know about, then trust would be much easier to get to, and with that technology layer of information, there would be a bunch of things that we would be able to do. And I mean, we have just talked about finances, but imagine the applications for import and exporting products. You know that what's supposed to be in that container is what it's actually promising to do. Insurance, transportation, international travel, dating, bunch of applications that I think would be definitely enhanced by this technology. And the cool thing about this conversation is that we have not talked about investing in cryptocurrencies, which is, I think, what most people normally think about. Cryptocurrencies, about all these things here in the news. But there's certainly many more applications that are existing today and could exist in the future.
And do you guys think, now that we're talking about all these new ideas, do you think that regulation is maybe a clear-cut regulation is necessary for all these ideas or new business ideas to start being created, or over-regulation could be also a problem or maybe detrimental to the creation of these new businesses?
I would say clear regulation should be a given. You should be clear as to what your obligations are when engaging in a new business, particularly a new industry such as cryptocurrencies. What I would say is that you can never expect regulation to be at the same pace as the development of a new industry or a new technology. So you should always expect regulation to be behind the new developments that are being created. So in that sense, I would say that there will always be a gap between what is actually happening in the market and what the regulators are trying to regulate. So obviously, I mean, the regulators will always try to have like a general framework that can consider certain activities, but they will never be at the forefront of innovation and new technologies. So in that sense, we should always accept the fact that regulation will be far behind what is actually happening in the market. And I'll give you an example of that. The first regulatory framework that was issued in the US with regards to cryptocurrencies was in 2014, and it only considered 3 business models that they considered at the time that were related to cryptocurrencies, and only one of those 3 was actually subject to getting a money services license. So those 3 business models were the exchanges, which actually had to register as a money services business, cryptocurrency mining operations, which did not have to register, and then people that just purchased or sold the cryptocurrencies for their own account, which also didn't have to register. In 2019, FinCEN, which is Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which is a department of the Secretary of the Treasury in the U.S., updated their crypto related framework to now consider what they call CVCs, which is convertible virtual currency business models. So they increased the number of activities from 3 that they had in 2014 to 13 in 2019. I mean, reading through this list, I mean, you can certainly understand that the regulator in the U.S. has been keeping up with developments in the crypto industry, and they have a much better grasp of what is happening in the market. I mean, for example, they had decentralized wallets, they had online crypto casinos, they had decentralized software applications that were developed on crypto. So a lot of those business models are now subject to registering as a money services business. But for example, that framework included nothing regarding NFTs, for example. So I would expect that as regulation and the industry progresses, that list will probably continue to grow. And I have high hopes that regulators will continue to interact with the industry and try to regulate as best they can. But obviously, I mean, no law is perfect, and the law can only foresee a potential development or actions by people, and it can never be a perfect law.
No, I agree, and I think it's the natural evolution that other topics through history have evolved. Imagine international trade, and so sending something from one country to the other. All the laws related to exports and imports most probably were simple and sufficient for the time where they were born, but then the applications, the complexity, the use cases evolved, new ones were born. Most probably it got much more complex, and then laws probably evolved in parallel to that. Probably the similar thing was with radio and telecommunications, later internet rules, and so on. So at the moment, I'm not a lawyer and not an expert in regulation, but as a regular citizen and business owner, one would expect very simple laws that allows for folks to continue to do what they are doing, individuals or businesses. But then as a citizen, I also believe that there should be, I don't know if it's in the form of a law or regulation, a way to also protect some individuals that it would not be fair to have them feel negative consequences of something that, because it's new or because it's unregulated, in the way it is structured to function, creates negative consequences or externalities for folks that didn't even expect them, right? So, and I think my main point here in laws or regulation, or the most important thing everyone should do, Congress people, business owners, individuals in general, is education. You know, it's like when, again, in the 90s, when people were starting to learn how to interact with the internet, is okay, how about privacy? How about keeping my password safe? How about not sending my credit card information over in an email or in a chat to another individual, right? So I think it's the same opportunity that we have now to learn. Not everyone is incredibly curious and active in tech or just wants to learn about this, but at least there's opportunities for folks that are or will interact with this whole new world of crypto and the blockchain, that they learn. And the laws that are going to be written or are going to evolve in the future, I hope come from individuals that have had the chance to consult, to learn, to educate themselves, to try things. The other day we met, we both met an individual from the government, and I told this person, hey, you should try it. Like, how you open a Nimiq wallet, just go to this website, try it. I mean, nothing's gonna happen to you, just to see it with your own eyes, right? And then I'll send you some money to buy a bottle of wine, and then that's a second step. Okay, I get this money, great. Now how do I go to places that accept this technology so that I can buy my wine, right? So I think learning by doing with guardrails, of course, or in a safe way, is something very valuable for lawmakers or people that are going to be having a responsibility in a government or in a corporation in how their constituents or stakeholders interact with this new technology. Because otherwise, imagine doing a law of something that you haven't used or that you don't know much about. You can have
that happens.
Experts. I can imagine you can have experts and folks that, no, I mean, a congressperson, it's impossible that they are an expert in every topic that they need to be doing their work on, but at least that they have a sufficient basic knowledge that demystifies certain things, that sort of clears ideas that are probably in their mind because of newspapers or things that they read or things they hear on the street. But ideally that they have sufficient technical knowledge to go on and do the work of creating these or evolving these laws. That's what I hope. I hope. And also this is not just for governments, also for corporations, governments that companies, small and big ones, that have opportunities to save money, to make more money, to be more organized, more transparent with the blockchain. They should learn how to use it first, rather than just going out with the first provider that shows up on the street and promises them a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yep, totally agree. Education is very important, especially now that a lot of regulation is being created, and hopefully all the people that are working on these regulations also take some time to educate themselves and try it out and learn by doing. As you say, Adrian, totally agree. Thank you for joining me, and hope to see you in the next one. Remember to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, to continue receiving alerts about this podcast, and see you in the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye.